Good morning, students. Today we will learn about the measurement of GDP, how we can calculate the GDP. Students, we can calculate the GDP in three ways: product method, income method, and expenditure method. But today I will discuss about product method. Okay. Students, here we can see a pie chart. This is a pie chart. Okay. Here we can see the share of GDP during the year 2007 to 18. Okay. What is the share of primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector? Agricultural sector, industrial sector or manufacturing sector or service sector? Okay. Agricultural sector, industrial sector or manufacturing sector or secondary sector, tertiary sector or service sector. Okay. Here we can see the share of GDP of three sectors. If we add these three sectors, all production of three sector, final goods and service production of three sector, we can get the total production of India. So here 2017 to 18, if we consider the share of GDP, service sector contribution is highest according to the picture, and agricultural sector contribution is lowest according to the picture, and secondary sector, that means industrial sector or manufacturing sector, this sector contribution is 30.32. Okay, this sector contribution we have to increase the secondary sector contribution towards GDP in India. We have to look after this sector. So here we can see the distribution of three sectors. So how we can calculate this GDP? The addition of primary sector's income plus the addition of secondary sector income and the addition of tertiary sector income is equal to GDP or GSVA. Okay. Now, what is GDP? We can say GDP, gross domestic product. The short form of gross domestic product is GDP. GDP is the total sum of the value of the final goods and services produced in each sector during a particular year. So, if the question is what is GDP, you can write this definition also. Now, students, see the chart, see the table. Here you can see the contribution of Indian agriculture, industrial sector and service sector in our GDP in different year. In 1950-51, the contribution of agricultural sector or the primary sector was high. The lowest contribution was industrial sector. In 1970-71, our industrial sector and service sector improved a little bit. During that time also, agricultural sector contribution was very high. But in 1980-81 also the scenario was the same. 1990-91 was the and 1990-91 the scenario almost the same. It is similar to 1980-81. But after that you can see the total contribution scenario has changed. Here you can see 2006-7 agricultural sector contribution reduced and the industrial sector and service sector's contribution increased. In 2007 and 8, service sector contribution was high and the lowest contribution was from agricultural sector. Okay, so this chart showed the how the scenario of contribution of three sectors in our GDP changes along with the time. Here we can see all the things. In next slide, with the picture, you can compare it very well. Here you can see this is the picture. Here this green part is shows the agricultural sector, and next one is industrial sector, and third one is service sector. I mark it here. You can see it here. Here in 1950-51 agricultural sector contribution, you can see agricultural sector contribution in our GDP is high, was high, very high. But the contribution of industrial sector was very low. But 1980, 81 and 1990, 91, you can see the scenario was almost the same in these 2 years. But here you can see after 1991, you can see the total scenario was changed. Here you can see service sector contribution was very high rather than the agricultural sector. Agricultural sector contribution continuously during that time was declining. Now I am explaining previous table and the diagram. In the diagram and the table, we have seen in 1950-51 the contribution of primary sector, that means in agricultural sector, towards India's gross domestic product or GDP was nearly 55.9%. That means during that time agricultural sector was dominating Indian economy, while it was 14.9% for the secondary sector. Secondary sector was only 14.9%. That means industrial sector. Since then, there has been a steady decline in the share of the primary sector in the GDP, and it declined to 19.4% in 2007-8. We have seen after 1991 up to 1991 agricultural sector dominant in our economy, but after that total scenario has been changed. The share of agricultural sector continuously was reducing, and in 2007 and 8 we have seen the share of contribution of agricultural sector declined from 55.9% to 19.4%. Okay, and we have seen a little bit of improvement in secondary sector, that means industrial sector also or manufacturing sector also. On the other hand, over the planned period, as the industrial sector expanded, its contribution to GDP has been on the rise and it rose to 25% in 2007-8. Along with the growth of the secondary sector, we have seen the growth of service sector also. But the growth of service sector was very high compared to the industrial sector or secondary sector. The service sector also registered a high growth rate. In 2007 and 8, its contribution was 55.7%. So 2007 and 8, we have seen service sector dominate in our GDP. Thus, it is clear that as economic development took place during the last 5 decades of planning, the primary sector lost its preeminence as against 29.2% in 1950. This, of course, a sign of economic development. So, our economy is continuously developing, it is not stagnant. Okay, our economy is continuously developing, but the contribution in development rate of our secondary sector was very low. We need to improve in that part, but service sector improvement was very high, and we have to improve our agricultural sector also. The income of agricultural sector and the income from the secondary sector, we need to improve it. Okay, our service sector performing very well. Okay, now I will give you one worksheet. You have to finish it. Students, now answer the questions. I have shown you how to answer the questions. So do it now. Bye, students.